Greetings, theists and non-theists. I'm the Atheist Paladin. I intend to do a rebuttal and a sort of a series on the historicity of Jesus. Typically, when looking for the historicity of Jesus on YouTube, I come across this particular video series, and I like to rebut some of its arguments and its objections to so-called skeptic objections. And we're going to really evaluate the evidence for Jesus. Now, personally, I think that the case for Jesus not existing is greater than Jesus than just existing. But I'm not opposed to him existing. But even if he did, I would still think he would be pretty much an overblown legend. Just an itinerant Jewish preacher who things just got larger than life. So if he's not a myth, then he's definitely a legend. So let's go through some of these things that this man says. The first part I take notice with.
First, you should know that this view is a new one. All throughout history, skeptics used to claim that Jesus didn't rise from the dead, or that his miracles were only parlor tricks, or that the disciples stole his body from the tomb. But they never claimed he didn't exist. Claiming that he never existed only became possible recently due to the long period of time that has passed since the first century. In actuality, there is much more evidence for Jesus' existence than there is for almost any important or famous person of that time.
Well, not only that, that's just plain wrong. The part why it takes so long to get to this point to say, well, he may never have existed, is because there was about 16 centuries worth of time where saying that could have got you killed. And secondly, why the contemporaries never questioned his existence, because it wasn't standard, modus operandi. It wasn't their standard procedure. I mean, just because somebody comes to me with some sort of story that this guy did these magical things, and he did this, and he did that, and he rose from the dead, and he rose other people from the dead, I'm not going to question the guy's existence. It's not standard. I'm just going to go, well, maybe you're just misinterpreting. And so, it's not when faced with something, when presented with something, you don't immediately, prove that he exists first. No, you pretty much assume, and then you trying to rationalize why they saw what they saw, and this is what they did. That as we'll see repeatedly, the critics will try of that time will try to rationalize in their own sort of way why this isn't an actual, why isn't he divine, or he's just a sorcerer and all those sorts of things, instead of just questioning existence because it just wasn't standard.
In this presentation, we will be using only non-biblical evidence. In other words, we won't be using the Bible to prove the Bible. We will also be stopping after every account to address the typical skeptical questions about each claim. I warn you though, if you watch this video, you will no longer be able to believe that there is no evidence for the existence of Jesus, and you might even start to question the integrity of the research of those that have told you that there isn't. I will be quoting from...
Okay, I've pretty much watched these videos quite thoroughly, several times, and I still believe that there's no evidence. So I'd like to present my own warning. If you watch this series, you will realize that those who present Jesus as a historical figure, particularly that the evidence presented that is so historical that it verifies the account of the Bible, you're going to have to find them very spurious and treat it with such skepticism, because clearly that's not the case. So the first person he goes to is Tacitus. Instead of going through the whole thing, let's go through the singular his reply to a skeptic interjection.
Skeptic interjection 1. Could Tacitus have taken his information from Christian sources? Answer. Because of his position as a professional historian and not as a commentator, it is more likely that Tacitus referenced government records over Christian testimony. It is also possible Tacitus received some of his information from his friend and fellow secular historian Pliny the Younger. Yet, even if Tacitus referenced some of Pliny's sources, it would be out of his character to have done so without critical investigation. An example of Tacitus criticizing testimony given to him even from his dear friend Pliny is found here in Annals 55. Tacitus distinguishes between confirmed and hearsay accounts almost 70 times in his history. If he felt this account of Jesus was only rumor or folklore, he would have issued his usual disclaimer that this account was unverified, but he did not.
Okay, you're really conflating, you're really making him larger than life, as if he wouldn't make that sort of mistake. There are two reasons to why to think that he is using a Christian source. The fact that he calls Jesus the Christ, which is a Christian title, is the first clue. The second clue is that he makes a big mistake. Pontius Pilate was not curator. Alright, he was prefect. And because of this big mistake, it's believed that he was using Christian sources and not government sources. And if he was, who did he use? We don't know. And so this is why we believe that he used hearsay, even despite him not saying that it was hearsay, and because of those two mistakes that he made, it's a good reason to say that he was using other Christians as sources. The other two interjections to Tacitus are very valid, and I don't think it's an interpolation, so we can go on from there. Now, Lucien of Sumata, and let's listen to this interjection.
Skeptic Interjection 1. Can we consider Lucian's testimony reliable, due to the source being a literary work? Answer. Lucian's comments revolved around historical events. In Lucian's work, The Way to Write History, he openly criticizes his contemporaries, who distort history to flatter their masters or those who fill in historical gaps with their personal conjecture. He writes, "The historian's one task is to tell the thing as it happened. He may nurse some private dislikes, but he will attach far more importance to the public good and set the truth high above his hate. For history, I say again, has this and only this for its own. If a man will start upon it, he must sacrifice to no God but truth. He must neglect all else."
Okay, so again, are we seeing a pattern here? Again, he's conflating him larger than life. Again, despite his strong opinions on history, he still was a satirist. He was still someone who was not a historian. And even if he did say that Jesus didn't exist, would we expect those works to survive after several hundred years of church rule? Many of the Greek works didn't, and we only know the Greek works today because of the Arabs, not because of the church. So that's something to think about.
Is it possible Lucian received his knowledge from Christian sources, or that this passage is an interpolation or forgery? Answer. Seeing how adamant Lucian was in regards to historical accuracy and critical investigation, our answer is an emphatic no. As to the passage being a Christian forgery, chances are that the reference to Jesus would be far more favorable if this were so. Lucian refers to Jesus only as a man, a lawgiver, and a sage. Human, not divine descriptions. He never once refers to Jesus as a god. Furthermore, there isn't anything in the above statement that reveals what wasn't already known. It merely asserts that Jesus lived, preached, and died. Remember, at this time, Christians were trying to prove Jesus' divinity, not his existence.
Okay. Again, he's conflating Lucien again. Just because he had strong opinions on history doesn't mean that he wasn't taking it from hearsay. Again, it was common knowledge. In other words, this is what that you heard quite often. And so, instead of saying, "Give me the evidence that he was a real person," wouldn't have been the standard modus operandi. Okay, that wouldn't have been standard procedure. And so, let's move on to Josephus.